Welcome to class number 6 for Hebrew 1 and 2. During this lecture, we will be looking at pronouns, not independent pronouns that we looked at in the last lecture, but instead pronouns that are suffixed directly onto other words. As we discussed last time, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. So instead of saying Kyle is pretty good at Hebrew, we would say Kyle is pretty good at it, it being a pronoun standing in for Hebrew. We could also say that a noun is possessive. So Kyle's book is a possessive noun. Kyle is possessing the book. However, we can also use possessive pronouns. Kyle is reading his book, where his is a possessive pronoun. This is the chart for pronoun suffixes. A suffix comes at the end of a word and will be attached directly to the word. There are two so-called types of suffixes, type 1 and type 2. Although if you look closely, you will notice that the only difference between type 1 and type 2 is that type 2 has a yod that comes between the word and the suffix. The first common singular ending, called common because the first person does not differentiate between the masculine and the feminine, is differentiated by a hirik yod in type 1 and a patak yod in type 2. That may seem like it will be really confusing, but as we go on, you will realize that type 2 endings are typically found on plural words, type 1 on singular. Certain prepositions will also take either type 1 or type 2, and yet regardless of type 1 or type 2, the ending means exactly the same in the first person, me or mine. So even if you can't necessarily identify what type of ending the first common singular ending is, you will translate it exactly the same. So really, what type, at least with most nouns and pronouns, doesn't really matter. There are only a few exceptions. Rather, we are introducing the different types because it will make a difference later as we get into other parts of Hebrew. Of course, chances are, as I've been talking, you've been getting more and more anxious. Oh no, how am I going to remember all this? Well, remember, in this class, we will not go from English to Hebrew, only Hebrew to English. So all you need to remember is how to identify what person and number we are talking about. And for that, Hebrew is so patterned that you can actually color code this chart as I have done here. Just look at the pattern. If a suffix is yod, it is first person. If a suffix has a kaf, it is second person. Not just second person singular, look down at the bottom half of the chart. Even in the plural, a kaf in the suffix means second person. Drill that into your head. A kaf suffix, second person. If you see a vav, not a shurik, but a true vav, like holam vav or a kametz yod vav, it is third person masculine. You can remember this by the fact that the pronoun for third person masculine is hu, he shurik, which has a shurik, but a shurik looks like a vav. The third person masculine pronominal suffix will not be a shurik, but it will always have a vav. The shurik is actually found in the first person common plural, but it is always paired with a nun. This is because the word for we, or us, is anachnu, which ends in nu. Continuing the pattern, if a suffix is he, then it is third person, always. You will notice, though, that the third person feminine singular ending has a dagesh in the he. This is actually not a dagesh, it is called a mapik. This is to differentiate it from other feminine he endings, alerting you to the fact that this is a pronominal suffix. The final pattern is mems and nuns. If a suffix ends in a mem, it is masculine. Masculine. If the suffix ends in nun, it is feminine, because feminine has two nuns. It's so nice of Hebrew grammar to have planned the ancient suffixes off of modern English. So just to highlight the patterns again, first person singular ends in yod. First person plural ends in nun shurik, nu from anachnu. A kaf is always second person. A vav is always third person masculine singular. A he, always third person. A he with a mapik, always third person feminine singular. Mem, always masculine. Nun, always feminine. Recognize the pattern. There are some exceptions, of course, because why not? But they are fairly simple. The yod at the end of a singular first-person suffix is actually a shortened form of the first-person singular pronoun, ani. Sometimes the nun from this pronoun will also appear alongside the yod. This should be easy to differentiate from the first-person plural because the plural ends in nu, anachnu. Third-person masculine, as I mentioned, is a vav from the third-person masculine pronoun hu, meaning he. But sometimes the whole pronoun appears at the end of the word. So look for hu, not nu from anachnu, but hu, meaning he. Occasionally, the third-person feminine is not he with a mapik, but he kamets. The directive ending he and the feminine noun ending he are both kamets he. This here is he kamets, not a, but ha. The mapik appears in a kamets he to avoid confusion, but when the vowel comes after the he, as in he kamets, the mapik is not necessary, since no other feminine form ends in he kamets, but only kamets he. As for the third-person plural, he is a pretty chicken letter, and it disappears whenever it can. Thus, occasionally we are left with mem or nun as the ending. The he reminded us that it was third person, but mem or nun endings only appear in the third person anyway, and the mem and nun are still there to show us gender, masculine or feminine. So in summary, none of these exceptions are really that confusing. This slide is simply letting you know that sometimes the he from a feminine noun becomes tav. That's not really surprising since we have already noted that some feminine nouns end in tav anyway. So this should not be too confusing when you see it. Simply make a note in the back of your head that he, rather than running away, will often become a tav when suffixes are added, not just with object pronouns on nouns, but also with subject pronouns later on verbs. This chart may seem odd at first. After all, wouldn't the plural of brother, ach, be achim? Well, yes, except that what we're really doing is adding the pronominal suffix to the construct form of nouns, which we haven't really covered yet. So technically, this form is not really my brother, but brother of me. Not my brothers, but brothers of me. In the masculine plural, construct nouns do not take hirik yod mem as the plural marker. Instead, the mem drops and the hirik becomes a sere, so sere yod. You can see that in the bottom right-hand portion of the chart. The sere is the most common connecting vowel, but not the only option, as you can see in the top right-hand of the chart. However, what makes single-syllable nouns unique is that normal masculine nouns have a yod only in the plural, connecting the stem to the suffix. They do not have a yod in the singular, connecting the singular noun to the suffix. Single-syllable nouns, as you see here, have a yod in both the singular and the plural, type 1 and type 2. However, there is a way to differentiate, and that is that type 1 suffixes on the singular noun will always have hirik as their connecting vowel, as you see it under the chet here. Type 2 suffixes on the plural noun will never have a hirik. They may have sere, segol, patak, kamets, but never ever hirik. If there is a hirik as the connecting vowel, you will have a singular noun. If you have a sharp eye, you may have noticed that the second feminine singular form on the plural noun has a hirik in it, a hayik. However, the hirik here is not a connecting vowel. By connecting vowel, I mean a vowel that connects the stem to the suffix. The yod is actually part of the suffix here because the root is ach, brothers, which means that the connecting vowel is under the chet and is a patak. The hirik is simply part of the suffix, yik. So a hayik still does not have a hirik as the connecting vowel, the way that the type 1 suffixes on the singular noun do. So this is the way to remember and differentiate between the singular and the plural noun. A heuric will always be singular. Any other vowel besides a heuric will be plural. Some words simply like to be difficult, like the preposition kaf, ka, like or as. This word in the first person singular through the first person plural adds a mem holum vav. Why? Why not? You'll just have to simply get used to it. There is no other type of preposition kaf suffixed to the first person singular through first person plural suffix that does not have the mem and the holum vav. Just this one form. The same with min, from, in column 2. For whatever reason, min adds a mem and often another nun in the form of another doggish forte, probably all to allow the short vowels to remain. Again, this is a form to be aware of and to recognize when you see it in the text. One last pattern to mention. We have a direct object marker and a preposition with, both of which are aleph tav. However, the direct object marker, and remember that object starts with O, will have a holum as its vowel. So not iti, but oti. There is no dagesh in the direct object marker. The preposition, on the other hand, will not have a holum. In this case, it will have a heuric, but it will also have a dagesh in the last root letter, making the difference between the two forms fairly recognizable. Well, that is the end of our material for tonight. Be sure to memorize the chart of suffixes, a chart which is just as important as vowels. You must solidify this in your mind. Be able to recognize the different suffix forms. Use Quizlet to reinforce the material. There will be a quiz on the endings in a few class periods.